Right. Thanks for joining us this morning as we talk about a milestone news event that will shape our future for better or worse. The first human received a Neuralink transplant, otherwise known as
resistance is not futile. They will not Borg me.
I don't know if I was looking for that response, but here we go. We have a news event that happened less than 48 hours ago. Elon Musk made this announcement. He said that the first human received an implant from Neuralink yesterday and is recovering well. Initial results show promising neuron spike detection. We want to hear from you on this subject, but we need a common ground before we start to dig into a debate between the two of us, and then we'll invite you to join us with your thoughts. Link is in the description in the live chat.
Yeah, in the live chat.
Okay, just make sure. This is a little bit different. This is the first time I've done this. Your brother in Christ here has a lot of experience doing this, so
I do a lot more call-ins.
We'll see how this goes. Usually we just open it up for direct chat. This will be different. If you want to make some comments in chat too, we'll try to keep our eyes open for that as well. This is a hot topic, and if we don't deal with this directly in our own lifetime, our children, or definitely our grandchildren, will be doing it. Have to deal with it. This is something that's current event, possibly. I wouldn't say life-changing. It could be civilization-changing, something entirely new. So before we get started, please like and subscribe. That really helps. And then we'll ask the question, where does this whole idea of interlink or Neuralink come from? And in this news that just came up from Elon, some of us might look at this announcement and say it's coming out of nowhere. It's like, where's this come from? Why is this coming up now? But it turns out that this follows a long history of using bio-implants. We have used implant devices that affect and interact with our nervous system for over 60 years. The first pacemaker implant was surgically implanted in a patient in 1958. A pacemaker is something that keeps, if you don't know, it's a pacemaker keeps the heartbeat regular. And it's been around for that long. I mean, well before I was born, before most of us were born, probably.
I was still around.
Then the multi-channel cochlear implant was first implanted in a person in 1977. A cochlear implant bypasses the acoustic system, the inner ear, and goes directly to the auditory nerve and stimulates that. So there's another part. Now you see we're getting from the heart to closer to the brain and hitting that auditory nerve. Not in the brain yet with the cochlear implant. Then in 2009, I was able to work with a group of researchers in Cleveland who were trying to develop ways to bypass damaged sections of the spinal cord to directly stimulate muscles of a paralyzed patient. I'm not going to say what the name of the research group is. I haven't got sign off from them and everything. But anyway, it's so this is something that's been going on for a long time. That we've been working with it for, like I said, over 6 years. So what's new about Elon's statement? And what work has he been doing with Neuralink? It's a step further with smaller wireless devices that interface better with human brain tissue, like what often happens with technological breakthroughs. They're more incremental. When we did have binary or digital logic circuits before the silicon circuits or silicon transistor was made and invented, I believe, in the 1950s. So we had that kind of technology predating, but putting on silicon was a way to make it smaller. And if you do it smaller, then you can put more circuits on there. Boolean logic, the logic that helps or calculates it's a way of working with binary systems. That has been around for over 100 years. So these incremental steps that we have over time, it's hard to say when there was really a transition. There was a news article way back, I think it was in the 80s or early 90s, talking about a rhesus monkey who had a brain implant, and they were mapping the monkey's brain as it was playing Pong. And when it won, it got a treat. A treat would pop out. And so the monkey would play back and forth with the joystick. And whenever it won, got it out. Fine. What they did is they were mapping the brain. So they put little electrodes on that part of the brain, the motor cortex, and find out, this is firing when he goes left. This is firing when he goes right. And so they did it enough so that they unplugged the joystick. The monkey was still going back and forth like this, but they were just reading the neurons, and the paddle of the Pong implement was going up and down based on just the neurons firing. And that type of idea that's been around a long time is now being implemented with Neuralink. Any initial thoughts that you have on this before we start to dive into more of the history and get into we want to talk about what really is Neuralink and what's behind all this before we get into an actual debate. Before the debate, what are your initial thoughts?
This is going to be fun.
Good, bad, ugly? What do you think?
This could be good. This could be bad. This could be ugly. There are multiple possibilities. Let's see what the comments are real quick before continuing.
Okay. Got it. So we have one from Thomas saying, trying to get my brain going for this one. Need more coffee. No, buddy. Stay away from the coffee. You need a Neuralink right there.
More coffee.
Grab the Neuralink and plug in.
Hey, you can have both.
You can have both. Nicodemus said, Boolean logic is Masonic.
No, it's not. It's true or false.
I use it all the time, buddy. It's not Masonic.
Ew. I wish Muslims
based
used
on
it
Aristotelian logic, ironically, more fruits for the resistance. There is nothing satanic or anything about Boolean logic, just like thinking in general is not satanic.
Again, I wish when I talk to Muslims, they would use Boolean logic more often than not. I just want true or false here.
That's it.
Is this yes or is this no?
Right.
I don't need a 10-page essay on why you don't want to answer the question.
It's just boiled down to its simplicity. If just using switches, that's all that the computer is based on. Just a bunch of switches. Of course, there's more involved in that, but the idea that you have this is turned on, this is not, and you have a certain type of like an AND gate or an OR gate, it will spit out a result based on what the inputs are for that. So I have another thing here, because I'm trying to set something up. That's why I'm trying to do this both at the same time. So was the Earth the birthplace of the Borg? We will find out if that is the case or not. Okay. Didactic, if one premise is not true, then the exact opposite must automatically be true. This reasoning is where the mass media divisiveness is spawned. Well, there are cases when you do have a yes or no condition, a switch that is either on or off. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a conspiracy behind it. It's just how some things work. Some things do have a binary switch on and off, like a transistor. It's either true or false, 1 or 0.
Heaven, hell.
That's right. 8 of 9. No, I'm not going to be that.
So the question is Neuralink or not Neuralink?
There we go. There we go. Okay. So this was an article from Interesting Engineering back in last November. So this is paving the way for the breakthrough that happened on Monday. After receiving approval from the Food and Drug Administration to conduct human trials, thousands of prospective patients have shown interest in being guinea pigs for Neuralink. The FDA initially rejected the company's request to run human trials back in 2022, citing safety concerns. The clinical trial involves implanting electrodes and super thin wires into a patient's brain and requiring that part of the skull to be removed and insert a computer the size of a quarter. This implant aims to read and analyze a person's brain activity and transmit that information wirelessly to a nearby device like a laptop. So
That's not creepy at all.
no, not creepy at all. So the question is, how far are they with this? And then what's the next step? What are we looking at? Is this next 10 years of this stuff happening? Or are we looking at something much further off?
That's at 10 years.
10 years.
Just because how everything else is going so fast.
Well, they do talk about that. So they've had similar trials on sheep, pigs, and monkeys. The company wants to check if their implant and surgical robot are safe to use on humans. Safety is a big factor in such medical tech, especially when part of the brain is being popped open to implant a chip inside. And Neuralink hasn't always received full marks for its procedures. Neuralink says that it plans to perform 11 surgeries this year, 27 surgeries in 2025, and 79 in 2026. Then things really ramp up, going to about 500 surgeries in 2027, 22,000 surgeries by 2030. And by that time, it should become more and more common to say, what are we going to do with this? Where are we going to go from here? Is this a good thing? Is this something that we're going to be able to do that's not going to cause a problem? What kind of problems will this bring forward in the future if we do go through with this? Another question is, can we resist it? Once you have a technology, is it going to be implemented no matter what? Is there any way to avoid it? So these are different questions that'll be coming up with that. And I'm going to check the live chat again as we go through and see. Let's see.
Again, this is an open
call
in. So anyone can call in, join us, have a discussion.
Not yet. We don't want anybody to join us yet until we have our debates. But later on, we will have people come in. And so if you're waiting and you have some ideas and you don't just type it in, but you actually want to speak live, we could do that as well. Emergency live. I'm not prepared for what this is. Yes, your life is on the line. I just want to say I just want to stay as God made me and stay away behind the cyborgs. Slippery slope, seriously. Yes, these are some good points with it. Monkeys on the Neuralink. You should show the video of the monkeys with the Neuralink chips in them. Do you have that access? If not, I have a copy somewhere. Yes, I do have that, and I believe if it doesn't show it in this video, it will show it later. This is a video directly from Neuralink. And they're talking about the cost for implementation, what can be done for that. Here you have the video behind Elon here is showing the monkey doing basically Pong. So they recreated the Pong experiment that was done decades ago, but then implanting it better. And the idea is that first they're going to be taking people with serious neurological disorders and help them out with this. Like I said, bypassing that part of the brain and go directly something else. This chip that would be in the brain here, wirelessly connected to other things on the spinal cord, receivers on the spinal cord, which would then give that signal to that part, like the leg, to be able to move the leg. And so that's maybe one of the good benefits that we would talk about later during the debate is that type of thing happening. Let's see what else. I think it looks very promising for our time. Here's the monkey doing the procedure back and forth. He was actually trying to get, he wasn't playing Pong, but he was trying to get the cursor to a block on the screen. And every time he moved the cursor to a particular block, then he would get the reward. I think they were feeding him like that. Okay, so let's. I'd like to. That's some of the background that's involved with that. Let's open this up. I'm going to speak with your brother in Christ here. Do a bit of a debate, and I'd like to take the "We are the Borg. This is all good" side. And if you wouldn't mind, this is more impromptu. We have not practiced this. This was news that just came out like that, and we said, this is good. We need to talk about that. That's why we're doing this as a special today. We weren't originally planning on doing a live stream. It wasn't until tomorrow. But this is such a hot topic. And we really do need to discuss this, because if we're not going to be dealing with this, our children or grandchildren will. And we need to set the ethical bounds for this before it goes forward. And I say we, okay, we're just a couple of guys, and even within the group listening here, we're just a small group of people, but that can grow too. So we need to think through this. What are the implications? How does this hit society? What type of things could go wrong? What type of things could go good with this? We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want to say, for example, that all cell phones are bad and then lose communication. So how do we deal with new technology without having it totally destroy our lives? In some ways, we are already like cyborgs with these in our hands. Some of us are just so glued, we might as well have these implanted in our brains anyway. So what difference does that make? Okay, starting the debate, I want to put one term out there that we're going to be talking about. The term would be BCI. And that is brain-computer interface. This is a little bit different from like a cochlear implant or a pacemaker or some of the other devices in there, because it goes directly to the brain. Brain-computer interface is a human machine connected to a neurochip implementation. So when we use the term BCI, we're talking about that chip in the brain type of thing. So, ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Give it a shot.
Okay. Arguments for medical applications. BCIs have a significant medical benefits, such as helping individuals with paralysis regain mobility or enabling better communication for those with severe disabilities.
True, but at the same time, there are possibilities of it replacing what God originally had there. If it ends up becoming better, people that don't have issues will start doing it. In fact, in our culture, a lot of times people are now opting to become amputees, not because they have issues, but because they want to be that victim status. They want to have that. And I could see them using the same logic to opt for this implant. Right.
So you're saying that if we do have something like a pacemaker, or a cochlear implant, somebody would basically make themselves deaf so that they can get a cochlear implant. Is that what you're saying?
There is the possibility. Again, that is.
Have you heard of anybody doing that with cochlear implants?
No, not yet.
Okay, so this sounds like this is a very rare thing that somebody would actually want to hurt themselves so they can get an implant.
Yeah, I think that's the only downside I could think of.
Okay.
To that.
Okay.
Being that I could see the advantages of that, because yes, paralyzed individuals having the ability to walk again, fantastic. Definitely any screw ups that we have had as humanity, not necessarily on God himself, just because we were stupid and we got injured at work, or oh shoot, a medical procedure screwed up.
Right.
Now we need to fix it. Those sort of things would be that's on us. That we got to foot the bill.
Okay.
And figure out a way to fix it. And if this technology gives us that option, that's good.
Okay.
But at the same time, there's also the bad that comes along with it as well. The possibilities.
Okay. So one of the bads you're saying is that people will go out there and hurt themselves just so they can get.
That's a possibility. Could be a thing.
Well, a cochlear implant doesn't even give you the same level of fidelity that your regular hearing does.
Yet.
Okay.
That's the key. Yet,
Yes.
I mean, and I don't expect for paralyzed individuals with this implant to be able to walk perfectly, just get up and run. I'd expect there to be a learning curve. I expect there to be probably joltiness, not the best situation. Maybe be able to walk around like a 90-year-old, even though they might be like.
Okay, so let's say that you do finally get better technology. That the first version of this, the first implementation, is a poor substitute for human hearing or human walking or whatever thing that we can do. But the third, fourth, fifth generation of this device, I get a cochlear implant and I have super hearing. I get version 16 of the paralysis override, and now I can run faster than an Olympic athlete. Right?
Yeah, you still be limited in some ways, but yeah, faster response time would probably be what would, and you could, in theory, have faster response time depending on what the how.
Well, let's just say this a little bit further. I'm not only a paraplegic who has a nerve damage, but I've also lost my legs.
So you've lost your legs. You cannot use them. We now have robotic legs that can be taken in place. And then you can use the Neuralink, or even an easier one would be like a hand. Hand would be easier to manufacture than legs, because there's a lot of moving parts with balancing on that end. So let's say a hand. So you have a hand with this implant. You're able to communicate, control it. I think that's very, very good. But at the same time, you'll be able to, in theory, have a lot more strength in that hand because it's robotic. Now there will be a limitation to that strength.
We've already had that happen in the Olympics.
I know.
There was the guy who I think lost his feet, and they gave him these kind of curved prosthetics that there's some spring to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave him an advantage over people who hadn't lost their feet. So could you see if they say, oh yeah, this is fine, would there be Olympic athletes then that would say, you know what, that gold's worth it, the gold medal, I know I'm faster than this guy naturally, just take off my feet and I'm going to beat him? Are you saying, I have a hard time believing that somebody would surgically alter themselves so they can compete in some sporting event to be better than other people within that certain category?
That would never happen.
That would never happen.
Never in women's sports.
Yeah. Leah Thompson. So no, that would never happen. Checking some of the chat here, because we do want to get you guys in here as not just on the chat, but audibly, like LaForge's eye implants in Next Generation. So yes, this is Star Trek Next Generation. He does have better improved vision. Why didn't everyone have the better improved there you go
option? That's where it comes down to. So I mean, it could be like extremely expensive, and there might be some serious drawbacks, and that would be where it could be leveled out as far as story writing side goes. But humanity will be trying to remove those negative side effects so that everyone can have it, and eventually they'll come to a point where the negative side effects are so minor that it won't be really a big deal. So let's say, so let's use LaForge's eye implant as an example. So you've got the ability to see a bigger spectrum. Okay. Well, now that's required from some jobs.
Okay. All right.
You're no longer allowed to work in some areas because
there you
don't have this. Not necessarily because the people are discriminating against you. You see, it's just in order to do this stuff, you have to be able to see this wider perspective.
Okay. Yeah. So
and it could even be dangerous or hazardous if you don't have this, or you might just be incapable of being able to see this.
Okay. So this is a thing. There are a couple of reasons why people would go for this. One is that if it's offered as this new game, this hot new game comes out, and the only way you can play this hot new game is with this interface. Now, I don't think anybody's going to go out and get brain surgery, especially if it's $40,000 a pop plus to be able to do it. But 10 years from now, once they go through all these trials and it's made easier and there's stuff that's done, there might be some people that would go for it. Once the technological watershed has been broken, once it's cheaper, simpler to implement, I think you're going to see a cascade. And you were talking about, that's just on the gaming side. People are thirsty for entertainment, almost willing to do anything for it. And this would be from a business standpoint.
Business standpoint. Now, there's two sides of this. You have the personal improvement that we're talking about with like LaForge's eyesight improvement. And then you've got the Neuralink interface side to it. And I really think those are two different things. They're not really the same exact thing.
Well, they interface to each other, though.
They'd interface to each other, possibly interface to each other. One could exist without the other, is my point. Where you're just improving what's here, the other side would be connecting to something outside. And once you have both of those interlocked together, it becomes very dangerous, because hypothetically, if you're controlling a hand with this Neuralink, say you're just controlling it, but you're also Neuralinked outside to the network, who says you can't get hacked?
Okay.
Now I got
so yeah,
issues.
Yeah, we're hitting all sorts of issues here. I want to go over some of the, because these are great points, excellent points of being possible dangerous. Now, there's all sorts of benefits, like any tool that you get.
Yep, there's good and there's bad.
There's two sides to this. And so Nicodemus said, nothing compares to God's creations. Correct. My question is, what happens when you get to a point where there are some benefits, at least on the surface, where it looks like it is better, whether you're faster, stronger? And so growing up as a kid, there was a certain video or a certain show that I really loved. Let's see if we can watch it. This looks like fantastic. This is good stuff. This guy goes out and does all these things. And this is awesome, man. Getting these implants. It wouldn't be a good thing to get this, to be able to do all this other kind of stuff.
Yes and no. Again, it's a mixed bag. Just like with any technological advancement, we've had good and we've had bad.
I got a note here saying lower the volume a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so you couldn't hear me on the voiceover for it. Basically, this was a movie back in the 1970s where he lost his limbs, and they were able to rebuild him, make him better, stronger, faster, and he was basically like a superhero. And I love this show. Of course, you look at it now, it's completely dorky, but the idea is here that you have something that can make it better. And this guy had this accent. They gave him these implants. They were connected to his brain, and he was able to do everything better. And it looked human, right? It's not something gangly that able to do. So what advantage do we have an advantage for this to be able to do it? And one of your thoughts earlier was, would someone chop off their legs to get this? Would you have the Olympic athlete then that would want to do that? And the answer would be, yeah, people would do that. People
would start surgically removing body parts in order to get this improved section. Eventually we might get to, if you start really getting really good at this, I could even see a certain point where you have either just a network-based society, where you have just basically upload yourself to this network.
Well, okay. Stop. That's going too far. No, I say not to go too far, because we're certain. Okay. There's some issues I want to debate that are just one at a time before we leap on to the next one. So we've gone giving somebody bypassing damage in the body neurologically to give somebody the ability to walk again or to use their limbs. I think we can generally say that's a good thing, right? Just like with the pacemaker,
yes,
to regulate the heart, to make it better, the cochlear implants, and other devices that we've already had that allow somebody to overcome an injury to be normal. But what happens when the technology exceeds human capability, natural biological capability, then people might opt in for going for that, and that's a real issue. And if we cross that bounds, then like you were saying earlier, then it becomes a requirement for certain activities. We've seen it for sports. We'll see it for job requirements. I'm sorry, sir. You're just not the right candidate for the job. Somebody else has this ability because of bio or neurological implants.
I think it's start getting to an arms race between nations too, because then you got the political aspect of this as well, possibly, where now we're out competing other. Let's say we got the Neuralink, and we're just able to think and interact with machinery better, faster.
Right.
So, and let's say no bad side effects of it. Just wave our hand at that for now, just to apply this. So now we can do that. But then let's say China comes along and sees us doing this and says, hey, why don't we steal this technology, which they're definitely known for doing, and then we'll go ahead, and since they don't really give a crap about human rights or about their people, let's go ahead and just mandate this. Everyone has to get this implant.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has to get this. In fact, you know what? We can even make sure that they're not thinking any rebellious thoughts by putting in a section here that scans for rebellious thoughts or looks for any sort of rebellious impulses.
Oh, boy.
And if they have rebellious thoughts, okay, maybe that impacts their social credit score. Or, okay, well, maybe we'll just make sure to lock those people up if they really think about it too much. You start getting into, we are going to deal with what you're going to do in the future before you even do with it.
Okay, so one of the other things that we would talk about is, boy, there's just so many territories we can hit from this. So far, we've been talking about what you can. You're giving input to a device from your body to say, okay, like I'm going to fire that neuron in my leg. How about, does that leg then give you sensory feedback? Do you connect the other way? So I'm going down to my bypassing that to neurons in my leg to fire off the muscles, right? Can I feel what's going on in my leg? So then I'm reading and then I'm writing. If I'm reading that, can somebody give me false sensory input directly to my brain?
Why not?
Why not? So
definitely, if you're connected to the network already, you're connected to the internet, someone can either hijack, which would just be sending signals to your leg separate from what you're supposed to be sending it.
Right.
And at the same time, they could be sending you feedback that you wouldn't be able to. For example, if you got the eye implant and you can't see while you're using this eye implant, okay, well, then they can put whatever they want in your vision, which could be for entertainment, or it could be for something more nefarious. You can start having issues with actually murders being committed like that, actually. I could see that.
Okay, so let's see. We've got some. There's the chat is popping right now with comments. Maybe we should rethink what good is and what better is. Worldly advantages are not that much value. There may be some things natural people will have to pass up or miss out on. And so this is a huge debate. Are we willing to say, like the Amish? The Amish say, we're not going to use this technology. Well, they cut corners. And there are some things that they'll do to borrow your phone or some other things that are going on. But yeah, to step back and say, we're not going to be involved in it. That's a great question. At what point do we pull back? And would we miss out on some of these things? Yes, we would. Technology otherwise.
Yeah, job opportunities. Definitely, if you're in more of a controlling nation that decides that this is mandatory. If you're military, if you go in the military, would this become a requirement in the military?
Oh,
They
wow.
have to have this implant because you can't interface with some of the weapon systems. In fact, if your response time would be too slow if you don't have this neural implant.
Yeah. So what about, you were talking about competing with other nations on this?
Yeah, it's the military side.
Military side. Okay.
You have to have this implant.
So we got another comment here from, you have an arms race, literal arms race, right? So we know so little about consciousness. NDEs would indicate that we are more than our brains. Whole issue, it just screams Big Brother, Mark of the Beast stuff. At what point? Yeah, because here's a question. How do you love God with your mind? We're told that the two greatest commandments are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. How do you love God with your mind? I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to see what you guys say about that in the chat. And how does that relate? How does that relate to this whole debate?
I guess another aspect of this is I can put this down.
Yes.
I can decide to walk away from this phone, place it down, and be like, okay, I'm done for today. I'm going to go. I want to unplug for a weekend and go. If it's in my head, I can't do that. I'm continuously always set. Even if I turn it off, who's say someone else outside is not still connected? I have no guarantee of that. Unless I go in a Faraday cage.
Yeah, Faraday cage. All right. So what is a Faraday cage? Some people may not know what that is.
A Faraday cage is just a metal mesh cage that blocks out any sort of radio signal.
Right.
So if you had a cell phone, you could have perfect signal right before you walk in. You walk in, you have nothing.
Right. Right.
It's a perfect way of preventing EMP damage.
And they can be very simple too. I've been in Faraday cages where they're nothing more than a copper screen up around a wooden frame structure. They just stapled the copper screen around it. And you close that door, you look at your cell phone, there's nothing. So you're saying what the Faraday cage is to block.
Faraday cage, you get Faraday rooms.
Yeah.
I could see someone putting up a Faraday room in their house just to make sure that when they're sleeping, you're not getting additional signals from the outside. Because while you're sleeping, you're also vulnerable, a lot more vulnerable than when you're awake. So there are some questions about what could happen.
So there will be real people going around with real tinfoil hats and it really making a difference. Is that what you're saying?
Theoretically, yeah. I mean, that would dampen it at least. No, I'm thinking sleeping, there'd be some people who would want to do that because you could get certain dreams. Maybe you're living the dreams. Maybe you can be guided through your dreams by those signals. Fine.
All right.
Same time, people could be doing other things in your head.
Yeah, not very good. So I got another comment here from Thomas Hall. How does this relate to becoming a new creation in Christ? After my conversation, I had 3 days of feeling superhuman in ways. Some of that has never left me. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about conversation with God. Is this a salvation experience?
Coming to a new understanding of what is actually going on.
Yeah, and here's the other point too. Remember that when we our future with Christ after death is not a disembodied spirit. Our future with resurrected bodies, physical is still going to be a part of the equation in God's economy in the future. So the physical aspect is still there, and being human is still a part of it. Do we become less human when we have these implants? If we start relying on them more than we do our own brain, our own body in different ways, chopping them off. So let's see, there's another, sorry, don't mean to drop that.
Where's that? I guess the question is, where's that line? If someone that has a cochlear implant right now
right?
Are they less human than someone that's not?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think you're going to see eventually, if the trajectory continues, I think we will see even the flip side, where you get the improved humanity looking down on the base model.
Okay.
Be like, you're incapable. You're not really human. You can't really get this. In fact, you could see science fiction.
Okay.
Concept.
And I do have there's a lot of bio implants in my science fiction books, and they're by the good guys. The good guys have them, and also the bad guys have them. I can't foresee this being around for very long, even the way some Christians might jump to conclusions. Not sure what you mean by that. I can't foresee this being around.
Bio-implants being around very long. Yes, I can.
Yeah, I don't think this would be.
I can really see.
I think this would be.
It counts on how it goes. If it's extremely expensive, then no. If it is something, then it'll go like the concepts of having a moon base out there and having people live on the moon, sort of concept where it's like, it's not really feasible at this point in time because of the upfront cost to do all that. This is, of course, a lot cheaper than putting a moon base on the moon.
Yeah.
So it could, in theory, if it gives correct benefits, it could be something that's stuck as just medical procedure for now, and then in 10 plus years we could see it. But then again, our society has been developing, and science has been, and technology have been developing so rapidly recently that it would not surprise me in 10 years if this doesn't become more commonplace.
Yeah. Please, I would encourage somebody, if they want to give this a try. The link is in the live chat description. The link to join us directly. Yep. Correct?
Yep, it should be on the top. It should be pinned to the top of the live chat. You can click on it. It'll ask for a video and an audio device, or some sort of recording device. As long as you have the recording device, you can just go ahead and join us. You don't need the video.
Yeah, you can be just totally audio. I mean, if you're sitting there in your
icon.
pajamas and your hair is all 5 different ways, or you're in a place where you can't really use video, that's fine. Audio is fine as long as we have a good connection. What's that?
You can use a phone for it. You can use whatever.
Right.
Should be an easy click. In fact, if you want to share that link again, you can just put it in the live chat, just as a reminder.
Okay. So I just put
it right there. So if you click that link, you should be able to join us, and you can have a discussion on this topic. You can bring up what you want on it.
Right. So in the meantime, I'm going to read some of these others. It makes it a little bit easier if you're here speaking us directly instead of trying to read the chat. So Isgul said, to love God with our mind is to fight sinful thoughts with righteous thoughts, to confirm our thoughts, our thought life to Jesus, but also to use reasoning powers to the glory of God. I think you're exactly right on that. So keeping your mind unstained by the world, keeping it focused, keeping in the right direction, and basically just dedicating your mind to God, just like you would your body, your life, everything is focused on Him. So then, is there any negative implications for what we see with Neuralink on this? Are we giving any of that up in doing it?
It's cool.
All right. The man is brave. Adam.
Or foolish. I don't know which. Decided to join us. Oh, no. This might be a mistake.
Good morning, or depending on where you are in the world, good evening.
It's good morning in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Oh, I have a cousin in Nova Scotia. So how are you doing?
North of us.
Oh boy, I'm hearing the echo here.
Testing
echo
1, 2,
of
3.
You?
What's that?
An echo of you?
I think
okay, can you hear me now?
It shouldn't be on our side because we're using headphones, and that should.
No, I think I solved it.
Okay, good.
Fantastic.
All right. So, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I'm kind of two minds on this. I'm thinking, like, we have people that lost limbs, they have prosthetics. Along those lines, I can see that. Like that could be a big help for people. But at the same time, like if you connect it to using computers, like you guys were saying, like the internet, you open yourself to a lot of dangers. And I'm just thinking how warfare would change. Like we already have drones. You're basically taking the drone and putting the soldier back in the field, but he's in the office, not even in the same country or continent.
Right. Yeah. If this was happen with warfare, I can imagine there'd be a huge arms race. We already had a couple of 2-3 years ago with COVID. You're in the military, you didn't have a choice. You had to get vaccinated. There were some guys that refused, and they were given discharges. And I think that later on that was brought back in. So, do you have bodily autonomy? I guess it's a phrase to be used. If you're in the military, they say, well, this is only temporary. We can take this implant out later, but we're going to install this in you now. You're a specialist. You get this extra bonus if you do it, but it's required.
I'm definitely seeing it be required just across the board too. If interfacing with your weapons even is required.
Yeah.
There was a movie. I don't know if we've seen this or not. There's a movie back in, I think it was the 80s, called Firefox. Clint Eastwood. He was a fighter pilot, and he snuck in. His assignment was to sneak into Russia and steal this aircraft called Firefox that had a Neuralink to the pilot. Now, it was not one that required. I think it was just. It might have just been voice activated. I take it back. It might have just been voice activated. But the point was that it had faster response time, so it gave them a strategic edge. So is that something that you're like what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, but it's like it's going to like if this becomes mainstream, this is going to change all aspects of society because, like you were saying, we're addicted to our phones now. We're addicted to the internet. I don't know how, like. A real Lenten fast for me would be to not use my phone except to actually phone people.
Yeah. That happened in the Gaza attack on Israel on October 7th. That Jewish Orthodox people do not use electronic devices on the Sabbath.
Right.
So October 7th was a Saturday, and Jewish people didn't know about the attack until later.
Yeah.
So that just go ahead. I'm sorry.
I lost my thought. Never mind. It wasn't that.
See, if you had a Neuralink, you wouldn't have to worry about that because it would already.
It would be push notification that the government would override in order to make sure you knew for your safety that there is an issue. So the problem is now the government has the ability to push information into your mind whenever it feels like it.
I think. Yeah. Would you say? Should I call you? Would you pronounce your name Isgul, or how would you pronounce your name?
I don't know. I made it up so many years ago as a gaming tag.
Okay.
I say Isgul.
Okay. So what should we call you then?
Well, you can call me Dave or Davos.
Davos.
Davos is unique enough. We run across other Daves, so this would
lots of Daves.
This would
so many Daves.
David W, David S. So
there's a billion of us.
That's right. So we'll call you Davos as opposed to Davos.
Yes, as opposed to Davos. Davos.
we don't want to mix those two. Okay.
The long O.
Yeah. When we so let's look at maybe some parameters. We can say there's some ethical boundaries that would be put here. One is, should there be any writing back to the brain, any feedback that goes back to the brain? Would that be something that we say that for like fixing neurological damage, it just goes out, nothing comes back in? Would you say that it's the case or not?
I don't know if our brain, like if you take a healthy limb, you get feedback, like you get tactile feedback when you grab a cup. That's useful information because you know how much pressure to use.
Correct.
So if you're trying to replace, like if you're looking at a medical thing, like this guy lost a limb, we're going to give him a prosthetic to help him get the use of his hand again, or give him a hand again. He needs that information.
So
but if you
go ahead.
But if you open it up to, like, you can give feedback through that, but also you can connect to the internet and check out your favorite sites like John Newton's Sci-Fi webcast. What does stop a hacker from hacking in and taking control of your hand or changing the feedback you get? I'm more concerned with your visual stuff because of the rampant use of pornography sites and such, like, and hackers, like, what can they do there? Or does the torture you could put somebody through by showing them horrible images that aren't even related to that?
Get them trapped in that.
Yeah,
right.
I can see that being a massive issue, because if you're just at home and someone hacks in and starts just compiling just nasty images and blocking your ability to be able to communicate out, you're trapped in this. And maybe their only way of getting out is to pay them a certain amount of money.
Yep.
So I guess maybe it's amount of control. Right now, I'm getting tactile feedback from my legs, and that's not an issue, right? No one else has control over that. I'm the only one who has control. Now, someone can, stick me with a pin or needle or whatever, and that would hurt. Yeah. But that's somebody doing that assault, right? You could be assaulted by somebody overriding your feedback system if you had some kind of Neuralinked,
pain sensors. You could have someone feeding you pain, feel like your legs are on fire or something like that. And again, from a programming standpoint, you would need that feedback. There's no way I could see. I mean,
so how do you prevent that from happening?
You would have to have your own firewalls. There'd have to be
closed network
security system. There'd be a whole nother department created in government. I could even see that whole job is just to make sure their civilians do not get attacked from outside forces, because we get spam calls all the time from India trying to get any information out of us. And just think of that, but in your head, them constantly having connection to your head, and you say the wrong thing or think the wrong thing, giving them more information, and maybe give them just the right information that they can then access your network, your body remotely.
Okay, so I think we could maybe draw the line to say sensory feedback is necessary for proper prosthetics usage, because you have to know, if you're, like you said, like a hand, to know when to stop.
Yeah, definitely. If it's robotic, because then you've got right now we have built-in limiters in our body, in our muscles. I mean, we're not using our full muscle strength as is. If you don't, and you have just robotic and it just does whatever you tell it to do,
right?
And you say, okay, I'm just going to close around this cup, I just want to grab it, but you don't have that feedback. I mean, you're just crush it right in your hand.
You could, if you have that strength, you would. So we do need that feedback. I think maybe the line is drawn is, say, if you have that feedback, no external connections to an external network.
Yeah,
you don't,
or a completely
don't give anybody
separate network, not connected to that network.
You would have to have
prosthetics.
Correct. I would want to have a physical separation between the two.
Now, here's the problem: if it's wired, and that wire is that is a physical connection. But if you use some kind of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connection, because that's what they're talking about with this new implant, they currently have this. There are implants currently being used right now, brain implants. They're called the Utah chip, where they're these spikes in this grid that go down into. And one of the problems with that is that the brain, you actually start to calcify and build up some resistance over time. So it's good for maybe 6 months or so, and then you have to replace it because the brain builds up, not calcified, scar tissue builds up around it. So the Neuralink uses these small fibers that's very gentle to be able to not get rejected biologically and to last longer. So with that, they're able to close that opening and then be able to go wireless to the other connection. So you got it run by battery, it's implanted, everything's going like that. You don't see it. And it's wirelessly connected to other parts. The problem with wireless then, can somebody get in there and hack that?
Well, you got two aspects of that. So you got if you're on the network connected to the internet, could someone hack in from the internet? Even if you close that off and just say, okay, well, this is not connected at all to the internet. It's just through Bluetooth to my legs. I come along with another Bluetooth device in my hand. Am I able to remotely access
That's what I'm talking about.
your legs through my Bluetooth device? Ugh.
Yeah. Okay. So you do want to be able to air gap. Air gap is what they're talking with computers to be able to get them off the network totally.
So there's just so many aspects of this that can be very dangerous.
Davos, you're going to add Davos. You're going to add something to that.
Well, no, I've second along the same line you guys are. Like, you need to protect the person from external threats. Because we have enough internal threats as it is.
Right.
You would have to have some kind of air gap.
Yep. And so that's one aspect. And the other aspect we can talk about is what happens if it really is an improvement? Like we talked about the $6 million man having better ability to do something.
Oh, I have
faster, stronger.
I have an improvement right away.
What's that?
Access to the internet. I could see a massive improvement even in apologetics and polemics. Because when I'm on the street, if I am connected to the network, I can immediately look up references to, let's say, some hadith that I want to pull up. I can look up that reference or even do a search on the words I know are in that hadith in order to get the reference to be able to present it to whoever's there.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, it would be a massive.
And you put that on your resume.
Resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can find it.
I'm linked.
Again, that would be something I could see as being a massive thing in the industry.
I think we're years away from that right now because all they've done is they're just mapping motor cortex. Abstract thoughts, I don't know if we have that mapped yet. Now, it might just be a matter of time, but
I assume matter of time. I assume that there's probably a way to find it. The only issue is then you've got, like I was saying with China, you got the flip side of it. If you can send a signal out using your mental thoughts, are they able to read those mental thoughts without you being aware? Again, I'm not saying for the United States necessarily, although I could see them secretively doing it. I'm saying for China, which doesn't give a crap, would openly do it, put it in there to check to make sure you're not thinking anything unapproved thoughts. Or if you're in the UK and you're praying in an unapproved.
By the way, if anybody else wants to join in, you can. We can have more than one person on at the same time to open up the discussion more. Davis, what else would you say is another problem that you foresee? And it may be benefit too. I don't want to say this is completely negative because like most technology, there's positive and negative aspects to this. What do you see as being a possible issue that we need to maybe have some kind of law set up to say this and no further?
I don't know. I keep thinking of like Jordy, how he had those eye implants, but nobody else on Enterprise wanted those eye implants. Now he did complain there was some itching and burning from it, but that was the only complaint you ever hear in the show.
He got headaches because of it as well.
Yeah,
if memory serves. So there's a trade-off. So that makes sense within that universe. But if we did not have those side effects, I could see that being one very appealing to someone who wants to go into that field. And again, requirements for certain jobs and eventually even discrimination against the base.
Oh, you're only human? You don't have any implants? I'm sorry.
Implants. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
We're looking for somebody else.
Well, I wear glasses. My eyesight is legally blind without my glasses. That's what my eye doctor told me. So in a sense, I'm augmenting my natural vision as it is to
Right.
way better than it is. So to a degree, like, it depends on what you're doing. In terms of athletic events and such, you might have to have new categories like non-augmented human category and augmented for certain categories.
We kind of already had that with doping, right, in athletics. So this would be maybe an extension of that.
There's another whole aspect that you touched on that I didn't even realize. You were mentioning about your eyesight, and of course I got glasses on as well, and I can't legally drive without my glasses.
Same here.
Are there going to be things that become illegal to do if you don't have these sort of implants? If you don't have these sort of things? That, again, that's just hypothetical. That could be a long way off. It's just things that we need to keep in balance with any sort of a massive advancement. And this is a potential massive change within our society that could have huge ramifications for the rest of human history if we go down this path. So,
yeah. So you have all sorts of legal aspects to it. You imagine the amount of lawsuits and how when we marry ourselves more and more to our devices, and maybe the term marry is probably a good.
No, I think that is
term.
very well used
So
term there.
As we do that, as we become more and more a part of our devices, how does upgrading work with something like this? If you have this implant and you're done, and that's all you can afford, you can't afford anymore. Then we have different levels of class of society. You know, those with implants and those without, and those with the best implants and those without. And you can only get the best implants if you have had money to be able to cover it. Now, I believe in the free market. I believe it's great. There are some issues with it, and we try to work around it. But you're going to have a whole new class of society, won't you?
It'd be very easy to fall accidentally, not even purposefully, fall into a caste system, a caste society.
Yeah. So I've mentioned this before. So I do there's a list of cybernetic implants I have in my books. And there's a linguist implant that allows you to learn new languages. You basically download it like you would in the Matrix to be able to speak other languages. So that it affects that part of the brain. You have an ocular locking implant that gives you better vision and records your vision for later use, so that you basically don't have to take your cell phone out, just whatever you do.
The other aspect, constantly recording.
Well, yeah, okay. I'll get to that in a minute. So, okay, so who has hacked into your eyes? But you also have retinal overlay, where you can get data. You can look up data directly, and it would scroll on your vision so that you could see it. Also overlays of different sensory input. Like for this, in the book, you are able to look at someone else, and if they have implants like you have, you could see what level they are, what type of implants they have, and so forth. They give a feedback. Think of Terminator 2, when the Terminator was looking around at things. He got feedback overlay of different things that he was seeing, that type of thing. So this would be kind of cool stuff to be able to have.
Oh, I could see it reducing any sort of party or any sort of conference or family get together I go to. It'd be very convenient. Name overlays. I don't forget anyone's name ever again. It's never awkward. Oh, okay.
I'm
horrible with names.
There was a part in the second book. I don't want it to be a spoiler, but in the second novel, where he's one of the guys is experiencing this for the first time, and he sees everybody's names. Oh, good. I don't have to remember their names. And then the little bubbles above the heads disappearing. He says, "No, I don't remember that guy's name. Come back." So, yeah.
Have you guys ever read the Dune books?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm thinking more the
Which one?
prequels with this.
Prequels, yeah. Oh yeah,
I
love
enjoy the prequels more than I did Frank Herbert's books.
I think I probably read them more than any of the others.
So you're talking about like the Butlerian Jihad.
Yes.
Machine Crusade, Battle of
Machine
Corinth.
Crusade, the Battle of Corinth.
Yep.
Very
Well,
familiar.
I was just thinking of the Cymac generals, Agamemnon
Yep.
Like Agamemnon,
and Juno and them. Like they were just brains in canisters that they put in different bodies.
Yeah, that was another
that's,
aspect.
That's like if you take the cybernetics to it, that's about as far as you can go without becoming an android.
Yeah, because that's all you are. It's a brain in a jar, right?
Yeah.
And you could be plugged into different cybernetic devices.
I mean, that's
But in
good and bad again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I bring it up because Frank and his son Brian and Kevin J. Anderson, they kind of played that when the machines took over, like we had machines do everything. You had the Cymac generals. Humanity became enslaved to the machine.
because they had that extra capability.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we lost our abilities because we relied on machines to do what we could do. So the humans built the Mentats to be a human computer in response to we can do it, but the machine we don't need to be dependent on machines like we were when they took over.
Right. Yeah, and then what was that? After the Butlerian Jihad, you had basically the law about no thinking machines, not being able to.
You should not make a machine in the image of a human mind.
Yep. And so it forced people, like you said, with the Mentats, and it was I love the writing that they had with the prequels to say where they actually came from.
Yeah.
Right? It was
that's
his
irony.
name? Being Erasmus.
Yep.
Mentor.
Gilbertus Albanus.
Gilbertus, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, great. Like I said, I enjoyed that writing more than I did the original Dune because it seemed like it was snappier and it pulled. We may do a review on those books.
Well, we have the next Dune movie coming out,
right?
That
and
we
are planning with
like
the release of the part 2 of the Dune movie to do a series on Dune, both the movies that have come out. I remember seeing the original 1984.
We'll have to review
David Lynch.
Yes,
yeah.
I saw that in the theater with my dad. It's the only movie I saw in the theater with my dad. But to see that and to review the movies and review the books as well, the original by Frank Herbert, and then maybe hit some of the prequels as well. So if there's interest, if people have interest in that, we could review it. Maybe we can even open it up with conversation and like we're doing here, because I think this is really good interaction. But if you like those books, you're gonna like mine. And so,
all right,
get a
I'm
plug.
looking forward to
it. So, any other thoughts that you have on? Because there's so many different limits. This is coming. You know, I don't want to sound like the Borg that resistance is futile, but this technology is coming. The question is, how do we, especially as Christians, how do we respond to something like this? Do we because I have Amish neighbors. Do we do like the Amish do? Just stay out and say, we're not going to deal with this at all? Do we get involved to some level, but no further? I mean, is this evil itself? What about people that have pacemakers and stuff like that? Where do you draw those lines?
I'm not opposed to technology helping people, but I am concerned of what it can do to our bodies, especially now in the early stages that people are volunteering for this implant. What could happen to the brain and what damage it could do if things go wrong.
Right.
But also, what was I going to do? I lost my thought.
So there are advantages to it. And the question is, what point do we draw that line to say here and no further? I wouldn't want to stop somebody from getting a pacemaker or a cochlear implant, but at what point of enhancements do we say, you're starting to cross the line there?
I'll give
an answer
to that too.
It sounds more like we're okay with the prosthetic side or the medical benefit side, but when the issues that are coming up are when we cross that with connecting to other technological devices like our computers and the internet, because that's really what opens up the whole host of different things besides augmenting human, like the $6 million man.
Right. Yeah, when you have those improvements, and then it becomes a job requirement or military requirement. How can we compete against, let's say, for example, if China were to have not only cyborgs, but they're already working at genetic enhancements of human genetic enhancement, not having the same level of biological or medical ethics that we would have.
I could see them saying that there are certain individuals that they cut out their brains, put them in a jar, and connect up to machines.
Oh my gosh!
I could see them requiring that of their civilians without their consent because they don't give a crap, and say that it's for the better of the Chinese people. So this is an honorable thing to have happen to you.
Correct. Adam says, I will say the situation of having a very tree of knowledge of the good and evil feeling. Can we resist the fruit that it promises to make us like unto God? That is a very, very good question. I think it strikes at the heart. I mean, you do have, that was a temptation in the garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be like God or be like gods if you have this.
And
True.
That would be an aspect of it because you'd have a lot more knowledge. You'd have access to a lot more knowledge.
So the temptation was true. The temptation was true. And it was, the problem was with it came downsides. And the enemy sold us a bill of goods by saying, hey, look at all the benefits, but not looking at all the side effects with it that came as well. And by the way, God was going to give that to us eventually anyway, right?
Yeah. And he just sold us on a shortcut that didn't end up getting us what we wanted.
He did the same with Jesus in the wilderness.
Yeah.
In saying, hey, I'm going to give you a shortcut. I'm going to give you all these nations. Because the way that you're going to do it is really going to hurt. All you have to do is bow down to me and I'll give you everything.
Yeah.
So, I guess from my perspective, and this is the same way that I've dealt with like TikTok, YouTube, that aspect of it is there a way to use this to spread the gospel in a way that's beneficial and righteous? The answer is yes. And I'm going to create myself a TikTok account.
You become a part of the board.
I don't like TikTok, but I do have a TikTok account that I do upload to because there's a lot of Muslims on there that are an entire area that need the gospel. And that's part of my calling, is to reach out to the lost, reach out to those people. And if I got to go where they are to a certain extent, I mean, I'm not going to go to gay bars. I'm not going to go to strip clubs. I'm not going to, no, where it's morally right to go, then I will go and try to preach the gospel to them and reach them where they're at. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
Okay.
But then that's a good question. Where would this go with video editing? Would I be able to think of a video and it be able to be created? Can I create a lot more content much faster? That would be fantastic.
So add this to AI.
Add this to AI generated stuff. Be able to go through and create content. It could open up the avenues. And again, if there is some sort of ocular recording going on, that would be very scary to me.
So there is another experiment that was done, and this was with a rat, and it was a brain implant that I believe they would actually give him doses of dopamine, and they would give him dopamine when he hit a certain trigger, just hit. This rat died by just continually hitting this lever to get these dopamine hits over and over and over again until it eventually just died. So that's chemical. But if you can trigger that part of the brain without needing the chemical, just by an electrical electrode there stimulating that.
Mm.
The pleasure centers of the brain. What could you get people to do?
Conditioning. It definitely, if you don't have any morals attached to it and you're doing it for quote unquote the greater good, that can be very, very scary.
I'm
So,
doubtful on humanity's ability to improve on the human body. We're wonderfully, fearfully made, and there are some things we think are better, but we've never experienced that better. So, is it really better, or are there drawbacks we're just blind to?
I think there's going to be a lot of drawbacks initially. You might, maybe in 100 years, have perfected some implants where they are overall better. Maybe there's still some minor drawbacks that are there, but I think it's just a matter of time before we reach that point.
And there's also the question, now this is more on the spiritual side of things, but the question of how this impacts your soul. Is there any... because again, we are a hybrid between the physical and the spiritual. So are we able to impact the physical without any detriments to the spiritual? Or are they interlinked to each other where you are really sort of messing with one without realizing it? I think of the genetics code that they were doing with rats, where they would tweak one part of the genetic code and they would come out, the rat would grow up with this additional tweak. They tweaked muscle mass. So this rat was huge, big old muscly rat. But what happened was they weren't aware that they tweaked one side, but it tweaked the other, another thing at the same time.
Right.
Where this big old muscly rat was extremely timid. Wouldn't do harm to anything and was scared of everything. Even other rats. Wow. So yeah.
Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. Tweaking this caused this effect that we didn't see. The problem is we didn't see that until the experiment was already complete.
Right. So I'm going to put up a couple more comments here. Threatened Sanity said, humankind will always try to have different societal classes as long as pride and lust and greed are involved. Yeah, there's going to be a stratification there. This will just give it another tool for another level, another dimension of stratification.
Dimension of it, yeah.
And then to me, it is easy. Use technology wisely, kindly, for the good only. Don't be greedy and do not have pride. The end. True, but
it's very easy to
other people.
You don't want to get to the edge, and even if you are fine doing it, you don't want to be a stumbling block to your brothers. So there's that aspect as well that as Christians we're called to be.
Right.
So we don't only worry about us, but we got to worry about the other Christians as well.
Adam said, and remember our body is a temple, so it matters what goes into it. We want to be good stewards of what we're being given. You know, we're going to be responsible for what's done in the body. There's even as Christians, even though we're saved, God's going to say, what'd you do? So there's going to be some judgment there. Honestly, I don't mind the mild modifications as long as they harm nothing. You know, that's the question, right?
I would expect there to always be side effects. I'd expect there, even if we've quote unquote perfected it, I'd expect that to just be, we've minimized the side effects to not be that bad.
So these kind of discussions, I think, need to be made because as we can, one of the dangers I see is happening is that technology goes so fast that society can't adapt and make some moral framework for it. And not that I trust our society in its current state to make some good judgments on moral framework with technology, obviously with transgender issues and other things going on. But if it goes so fast, who is going to be calling the shots on this? It's probably going to be corporations, the people that are creating this stuff. Even if they're altruistic and well-intentioned in the beginning, somebody eventually is going to be taking control. And unless we have something in place, and not necessarily just legally, I'm talking about us as a society standing up and saying no to certain things and yes to others, we're going to be steamrolled by it.
We have not been very good at a society standing up and saying no to something.
No, that's a concern
with that.
So I think a lot of prayer involved. You know, where are we going to go from here? Say, God help us. Who knows?
We'll probably do a live stream more and more as, I guess, more information comes out on this.
Yeah.
I'd assume we'll have another one of these.
We'll try to keep you guys in touch with what's happening with it too. And I mean, you can read it yourself, but I think having this interaction here helps narrow some things down. And here's a question I have. And I want to get this from you guys. I have already written these bio-implants into my novels because I was thinking from the point of view of the $6 million man, hey, this is cool stuff. I'll be able to do this. I have people with certain abilities, like this one guy has the ability to, and this is very, very far advanced into our future, has the ability to over gravity. He has control over gravity. Having that ability would be awesome if you're a good guy, bad if you're on the receiving end. But is it ethical? Can you see a Christian society that has these type of implants involved where they're better, they're increasing our abilities, they're enhancing our abilities, they're used for good? But is that ethically okay? Is that transhumanism? Is that necessarily a bad thing?
I guess.
What are your thoughts?
Well, we sort of have it now with prosthetics. Like, granted, they're not improving, but they're helping them to replace a lost limb. Our current level's not the same, but you could progress along that. I don't think there's anything wrong for a Christian to have a prosthetic or an implant to help a medical condition, but to say take a healthy human body and to purposely mutilate it and just to put a supposedly augmented part to it, that's where I have to sit down and kind of process that in prayer and such, because maybe there isn't an issue with that. I don't know where I stand on that myself.
In my book, they would be implanted and not replacing.
It'd be augmentations.
Augmentation, implanted, not replacing. So, like with the linguist implants, it would be something that's the size of a pea or something that would be put into the brain, and then you would have this ability to speak other languages.
I guess going off of the whole gravity thing. As far as because it's basically just a weapon. I mean, all our weapons that we have always been augmentation of what humanity could do. We had originally we had a pointy spear, so it can penetrate easier. Okay, well, we turned that into, we added a stick at the end and we were able to throw faster. Okay, and then we added bow and arrow to it. Now we're augmenting our strength to throw a spear into throwing an arrow, just with technology. From there to the crossbow, from there to bullets, from there to missiles and what we have currently. So all that we have done as far as weapon systems go has always been to augment what we originally were able to do physically. So, and then the question is, should Christians then use weapons? I'd still say in some capacity, yes.
Okay.
Because we live in a fallen world that we still need that aspect. We still need the defense. And I think it's still required in some regard. But that is a discussion for another time.
Okay, so got a couple more comments here. Insanity said, honestly, I don't mind mild modifications as long as they harm nothing. And then she said, don't put anything into your brains. Holy cow.
That's what we're talking about. They're drilling into the brain and putting these things in the brain.
Okay, and Adam said, is this what the fallen watchers did when they shared knowledge with the humans that they shouldn't have? God was angry with them. Only he can bestow these things because only he knows the full implications. Is that in the Book of Enoch? I think it's in the Book of Enoch.
Yes.
But, okay, good. I haven't read the Book of Enoch, and we're going to be going over the Apocrypha. By the way, we don't know exactly if the original plan for tomorrow, because we are doing that special thing. I will be pushing it off again, and it's to be decided what tomorrow is going to be because we did this on such a short notice. And then Threatened Sandy said, replace the hand or leg is a different thing than implanting in the brain. That has so much more complicated and needs to be tested for way much more time. Yes. So they're talking about trials that are going to be going on with the FDA. They've already done this with sheep, the animal trials, and so forth. These are the
they're moving on to
Neuralinked
human
devices.
trials.
Human trials have just started with Neuralink. They've done human trials with these other types, like the Utah chip. This is with Neuralink, so wireless. Getting started now. So they have been doing brain implants for a while now.
Well, my mom, she has Parkinson's. She has a brain implant that does deep electrical waves to help with her symptoms. And
Good.
That's been done and safely done for 60 to 80 years, I believe.
Even the cochlear implant is, in a way, in the brain. So it is.
Well, no, it's. I know it's. I think it's just the auditory nerve, doesn't it? I think it
connects to. There's a part of it that connects to the brain.
Okay.
So there is, at least if memory serves. So there is a part of that, and that's been done for quite a while. And I know a couple of brothers in Christ that have that. It's just, it helps them function as far as being able to hear and spread the gospel.
Okay. I think I know who you're talking about. So with your mother, that's a good thing. Yeah. It's not like she's going to go around and Star Trek try to simulate you or anything like that.
No. But it's been a massive help for her symptoms.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. And it is fantastic that research has been able to get us to that point, like with the group that I was working with in Cleveland, be able to work with neurological issues like this. And so I don't think anybody would really say that that's, well, there probably are people that say that that's particularly evil, but I don't see that as being a problem.
I think just like with any other technology, the internet, I mean, we're able to have this conversation. I'm able to do the polemics and apologetics that I do, being able to reach people all across the world because of the internet. That's a great good. But at the same time, there's also a lot of people looking at porn, a lot of people abusing it as well. I think you're going to have both sides of it, just like we have both sides of the internet, where there will be people that will abuse it, but there will also be people that will use it for the true good. So I guess we just have to be careful as we move forward.
So Threatened Sandy said, no, it's signals, not control.
Signals going to it, not control of it.
Of the brain.
Of the brain.
Right.
But at the same time, signals are a form of control.
Right. If you give them the wrong signals, you can think you can change someone else's response.
Even with like the cochlear implant, if you are able to manipulate what that is, if it was wireless and it's like able to be hacked into, if you can control what is being heard remotely, you can change my reactions to something depending on how I hear it, or even the tones that are being used, that someone is using. Say you add in an aggressive tone to what I'm hearing through that implant, then my responses would be changed accordingly.
Right.
So
Adam said, I think it's a big difference. A big difference comes with information, knowledge, and augmentation. There is something I can't quite put into words. I think this is what we're all struggling with on this. It's like, obviously there are some things that are good with this. Somewhere along the line, it crosses the line into the Borg. It's hard to put your finger on what that is. We already talked about feedback. Feedback is necessary and good. Then having this air gap to keep me separated from somebody that can hack into it would be good. Or somebody having control over you, an outside force. We would say that control is bad. Direct control. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
But then, is getting an augmentation, is that where we cross the line? We're not just repairing damage to the same level that human capabilities would have been, but now we're taking it to a new level. Is that where it's crossing the line?
I don't know. Because again, just like any sort of technology has always been an improvement on what we've already had, giving us more abilities.
And even if you outlaw that, I don't think you can. I don't think you could successfully outlaw that. And how would you really do? Say, no biological enhancements, or no, what would you say? No implants that give you an enhancement, just keep you at whatever level you were.
I think the crossing the line is when you take technology without adding morals to it. Taking technology without morals. I think that's where you really cross the line into the Borg area.
Yeah,
and
defining those ethics is the question.
Defining the ethics, and the only way we can define it consistently is with the Bible. Plain and simple.
I think you're probably right with that.
Because you have to have a consistent ruling that's beyond our ability. Because if we just rely on cultural ethics, then it fluctuates. It consistently changes. It's not something that we can measure by. It has to be the Bible.
Okay, Adam said Gandalf could not use the One Ring for good. Using brain implant gain power, I think, is the same. Ooh. It is the One Ring to bind us all.
I think one of the issues is we're messing with what is it to be human too. Because we're soul, we're body, and we're changing the body. But like when you augment it, now you're not just repairing what was damaged or lost. You're trying to change the creation. I think that's part of where we're having the issue. Like, where's this line? Where's it? It's just like, because with phones and computers and technology, they're separate from us. So we can improve that and have the ethical decisions. We have no problem having those. But because we know where lines are, because it's not part of us, it's not part of what it is to be human or humanity. So that's philosophically, it's going to be more like, where's the line where it's okay, and the line that now we're trying to improve on the creator's creation. What point is it good and not? Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the issue for me would be if it allowed me, like I was saying earlier, to be able to spread the gospel easier, to be even as simple as just be able to produce a video at faster rate, at a faster quality, that showed the light of Christ, was able to reach the lost. I would be hard pressed to look at that and say no. I'd have to have a good heavy conviction to say no, don't use that, because I don't want to get to the kingdom of heaven, stand before God and say, hey, I chose not to use it. And God said, well, I gave you that as a tool.
Oh boy.
And you chose not to use it. And because of that, there were consequences and people weren't reached because you chose not to use that. I think of the guy that is on, it's a metaphor for it, but the story of the guy that's on the boat and his boat's sinking and he's there saying, I want God to save me. God save me. And a rescue boat comes along and he says, no, I want God to save me. And a cruise liner comes along and they throw him a lifeline. He says, no, I want God to save me. Rescue helicopter comes along and he says, no, I want God to save me. Well, he sinks and dies. He gets to heaven, and God, he says, "Why didn't you save me, God?" And he said, "I sent you a rescue boat, a cruise liner, and a helicopter, and you didn't take it. How much more did you need?"
That's a good question. I mean,
Mm.
having the ability and then refusing it, you say like, okay, here's an example. We have other technology that is an enhancement to what we have. Our phones allow us to communicate with people around the world. Our cars, our automobiles, allow us to faster transportation to get other places a lot faster than just walking. Well, implication is we're a much fatter society now. Thank you very much, because we don't walk like our predecessors did.
Mhm.
And so, but we can get around faster. We can do things better. Just because now the question, it is part of our bodies. It is integrated tightly with our systems.
Yeah. So again,
That's
the
the
question
question.
would be, for me, it would be, I would have to have a strong conviction from the Lord to say no.
But it's like Galadriel when she looked at the ring, and there was so much she could have done. She could have overthrown the Dark Lord with it, and then she could have been the queen, and everybody would look at her in fear because of her beauty and her greatness. It would enhance whatever she had to the point of it becoming monstrous.
Yeah. So again, trade-offs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like any level of technology, we have to be careful on how it's controlled. And there are quite a few comments there. I went on a bit of a rant.
Please, too early now. Please don't put anything into your head.
No.
Put your hat on. Yeah, I'm going to put my my tinfoil hat on. In Exodus, God did not want an altar made of silver, or gold, or cut stone. He wanted an altar naturally cut stone. God loves natural world, and he made, and I trust that he did it right.
And there's a couple of aspects of that.
If God wanted us to fly, he would have given us wings. We don't need to use an airplane.
I don't know. I'm flying to a conference, so I can't say.
I think that one of the lessons here is to take this slowly. You know,
with discernment.
With discernment, and to rush it. What did Jesus do? Did he have any superhuman abilities? I would say yes, right? Walk on waters. In his resurrected body, he walked through walls. He was able to do so much more, and I believe that we would be capable of that in maybe the new heaven and new earth, since he's the first fruit of resurrection, or the first to be resurrected, and we would also have resurrected bodies similar to his. Who knows what the future we have for it? Maybe we just need to be a little more patient, not rush it as much.
Hey, I'm taking it slow. I got to figure out what the heck's going on, and I'm definitely not signing up for these trials.
So I think we should probably wrap it up here a little bit. These are good discussions. I don't think we have this settled. This is still an open issue, but I think we nailed some things down. One, you want to air gap any kind of wire network thing that you have. Maybe don't put anything into your brain at all. Let's wait a couple of generations and see how this happens. By the way, I refused to get the COVID vaccine because I wanted to see what was going to happen with it first. Give it a few years, and it looks like there are some pretty nasty side effects with telling your mRNA to start producing spike proteins. And wow, there are some blood issues and a lot of other things that are a problem. Maybe we should have waited and did some more trials before we jumped into that. So same thing with this possibly, is to wait and find out what's going to happen.
I agree. I never get the first version of anything anyway.
That's
technology wise or other. I normally get like the third or fourth generation back because they worked out the bugs by that point.
Okay, so again, thank you everybody, especially you, Davos, for coming on. I appreciate your courage. Jumping on.
Quick here, guys. If you like the call-in format, maybe that's something that we might want to well, something you might want to look at doing more often.
I think it is. The only question is to call in and not have people join in. That's what I really appreciate. And I know like there's others like Adam at this time of day is bad for him not being able to do this and participate. And it's difficult to know the proper time because we're talking to people around the world. There is no really set time that seems to be the best for everybody. And I also don't want to do it in the evening time in our time because then I would be overlapping with other apologetic channels. But maybe, there is a time slot there that would work well with that. But these are ethical issues that we really need to struggle with and look at scripture and say, how do we deal with this stuff? It's coming down the pike. We're looking at 10 years away where this is definitely going to be, they said their schedule is for like 22,000 people by the year 2030. And then who knows from there? It just goes. So how are we going to work with this? And we'll look forward to more. So again, thank you for all your participation. It's been great. And I look forward to more in the future.